The girl who loved you, waited for you for 10 whole years. During those 10 years, she went from an innocent young girl to a successful female CEO, while you still looked almost exactly the same as you did back then. 10 years ago, the two of you graduated from high school. Young and inexperienced, you made the usual promise. You told her that you would love her for the rest of your life, and that you would definitely make her happy. Blushing, she agreed to spend the rest of her life with you. But the very next day, you disappeared from her world, as if you had vanished into thin air. For the next 5 years, she desperately searched for you, but you never appeared in front of her. Because the day after you confessed your feelings to her, you accidentally traveled through time and ended up 10 years in the future. For you, it was nothing more than yesterday and today. But from everyone else's perspective, you had been missing for an entire decade. At this moment, you pinched your own face several times, finally accepting that everything around you was real. It was June 8th, 2010. After finishing your college entrance exam that evening, you went to the supermarket underneath the apartment building where the girl you loved lived. You tripped, and when you opened your eyes again, you had suddenly gone from 2010 to 2021. You looked around. The neighborhood had completely changed. Without thinking, you followed the road toward your old home. But finding your way back wasn't easy. Too much had changed over the past 10 years. By the time you finally found your old house, the sun was already about to set, and it wasn't a house anymore. It had been demolished years ago. In its place was now a huge park. You then went to the old convenience store and tried calling your father. As unreliable as ever, his phone still couldn't be reached. Apparently, even 10 years ago, his phone had always been impossible to get through to. But 10 years later, his number had been completely disconnected. The convenience store owner suddenly adjusted his glasses and stared at you in shock. Xiao Guo, you hesitated. After all, you hadn't expected that. 10 years later, the owner of this little store would still be the same man. The uncle who used to have messy, restless hair now had half his hair turned white. Xiao Guo, is that you? You looked at him carefully. Uncle, did my dad ever come back? Your father kept looking for you. He couldn't find you anywhere. Later, I heard he went overseas. Apparently, he even took a woman with him. The uncle paused, thinking. And there was also a girl who kept coming here asking about you. A girl? Yeah. She seemed to be your high school classmate. She kept asking about you for several years. What did she ask? She kept asking where you had gone and whether I had ever seen you. The uncle took another sip of his drink. I remember she was a girl with a round face and long hair. You froze. A strange shock ran through your entire body. How many years did she keep asking about me? Maybe 4 or 5 years. After that, this area was demolished and turned into a park. I never saw her again. You suddenly remembered her. The girl who was always smiling brightly whenever she stood in front of you. If you had promised to protect her for the rest of your life, only to disappear the very next day, wouldn't she have been heartbroken? You immediately started running, but after only a short while, you got lost again. The roads had changed so much over the past 10 years that you couldn't remember how to get to her house. Then her voice suddenly echoed inside your mind. Gu Yiming, I'll always believe in you. Those words filled you with strength again. Finally, as dusk settled over the city, you relied on your countless memories of the neighborhood, and finally found her home. You gathered your courage and climbed the stairs of the old building. But when the door opened, the person standing before you wasn't the girl you remembered. It was an elderly woman. From her, you learned that the girl had moved away long ago. But she had returned several times over the years, and every time she came back, she would ask the old woman whether she had seen a tall, thin young man come looking for her. You walked out of the old building in disappointment. You felt completely lost. You wandered along the road and noticed several homeless people sleeping beneath a bridge. You were standing there absent-mindedly, wondering whether you should simply spend the night with them, when suddenly, "Hello everyone." The voice instantly brought you back to reality. You looked up. A giant screen was hanging in the city square, broadcasting a television program. The host was interviewing the youngest female CEO of the Shimei Group. And the moment you saw her face, your mind went completely blank. Scheiße. You never imagined that you would meet the girl you loved again after 10 years like this. You immediately memorized everything you could about her. Shimei Group. Young, beautiful, and, most importantly, the youngest female CEO. You took a deep breath. So she's become this successful. But the host continued asking questions. A beautiful woman like you must have had many boys chasing after you during middle school. Did you ever date at a young age? Lin Xiao sat on the sofa. For once, she looked slightly embarrassed. Then she suddenly smiled brightly. Unfortunately, no one ever chased after me. And I never dated early. Only you knew she was lying. Because just yesterday, 10 years ago, she had still been telling you again and again that she loved you. But that was already a decade ago. You reached into your pocket and discovered that you still had 50 yuan with you from the time you traveled through time. You immediately found an internet cafe nearby. And within minutes, you found information about Lin Xiao online. You were reading through her interviews and various news reports when you suddenly stopped. Your heart began beating faster because you had found her relationship status. Husband. None. Thumb. You weren't sure whether the information was incomplete or whether she really wasn't married, but for some reason, you felt secretly relieved. Fortunately, her public email address was listed. You hesitated for a while. Then, anonymously, you sent her an email. Meanwhile, inside a huge bedroom, Lin Xiao was exhausted. She leaned against the headboard and rubbed her temples. Why have I had this strange feeling these past few days? It was a feeling she hadn't experienced even once during the previous 10 years. She constantly felt as if someone was about to appear in front of her. Suddenly, her phone lit up. A new email had arrived. Normally, Lin Xiao never checked messages sent to her public email address because most of them were useless. But today, something felt different. She opened the latest anonymous email. The message was extremely simple. Have you ever loved someone? Do you still love him? Do you have a boyfriend now? Hello, Xiaogu. You had barely left the internet cafe when you heard a voice coming from behind you. Uncle Zhang. You turned around. Uncle Zhang was running toward you, breathing heavily. He had apparently been searching for you for a long time. When your father left back then, he told me that if I ever saw you, I had to stop you. He left an envelope for you. There was a bank card inside, along with some money. He told me to give it to you if I ever found you. Uncle Zhang smiled. I've kept it in my safe for 10 years. I honestly thought I'd never see you again. You were stunned. Your father had apparently left an overseas address inside the envelope. He wanted you to use the money to settle things here before flying overseas to find him. You quietly nodded. But instead of feeling happy, you suddenly felt strangely empty. After 10 years, your father probably had a new family overseas. Would he even want you back? You followed Uncle Zhang to his store. As you looked around, you noticed something strange. The shelves, the furniture, the arrangement of the room. Almost everything was exactly the same as it had been 10 years ago. Even the washing machine hadn't been replaced. Then you accidentally noticed a small decorative box covered in dust. You carefully wiped away the dust and opened it. Inside were hundreds of tiny stars, folded neatly in different colors. Uncle Zhang, where did this box come from? The old man suddenly remembered. Oh, this box. It belonged to that little girl you used to date. The day your family's building was demolished, she threw this little metal box into the rubble. That was probably 7 or 8 years ago. You turned around and stared at him. What happened to her? Uncle Zhang frowned. As far as I remember, she was really heartbroken. I tried to stop her from throwing it away. She wouldn't listen. That box was beautiful, and those stars must have been folded by someone important to her. It seemed like a gift from someone she cared about. It would have been a shame to throw it away, so after she left, I brought it back here. I haven't seen her since. The box has been sitting here all these years. You stared silently at the box. Then your memories returned to January 1st, 2009. Beside the huge tree at your high school, students were celebrating the new year. Lin Xiao, Happy New Year. Today is our first anniversary. I made this for you. Inside the little box were 366 paper stars. I hope that during the new year, every one of these 366 days will shine as brightly as the stars inside. The girl laughed. You idiot. You can't even count properly. Why did you fold 366 stars? Because there's one more star. That one is me. It represents the fact that from now on, I'll be in your life every single day. The boy smiled mischievously. The girl happily accepted the box. From today onward, I'll take very good care of it. Because one of these stars is you. So I'll never lose it. Back in 2021, you looked at the rusty old metal box. It was so damaged that it seemed as if the slightest touch might make it fall apart. Inside, you found several old, yellowed pieces of paper. You opened one. It was a message from yourself. I made a promise, and then disappeared the very next day. You idiot. I'm going to throw you away. I'm really going to throw you away. I'll never see you again. That night, you borrowed Uncle Zhang's old computer. You desperately wanted to know whether Lin Xiao had replied to your anonymous email. Their computer was ancient. It still ran Windows XP. It was painfully slow, but it worked. You nervously clicked on the email icon, and suddenly, your heart jumped. There was a new message. You opened it immediately. Guess who I am? If you want to know the answer, come ask me in person. You stared at the screen. What does this mean? Your entire face became covered in sweat. Could she really have recognized me? You suddenly stood up. I have to see her. The next morning, you woke up early. The first thing you did was look in the mirror. You washed your face. You fixed your hair. You borrowed an old phone from Uncle Zhang and used its navigation to locate Lin Xiao's company. Before leaving, you carefully placed the little metal box inside your backpack. Then you took a taxi and headed toward her company. Halfway there, you suddenly felt that your appearance looked too childish. So you stopped at a hair salon and got a more mature haircut. Then you went into a suit shop and bought yourself a stylish suit. You looked at yourself in the mirror. For a moment, you imagined how Lin Xiao would react when she saw you. Surely she'd think you looked much better than she remembered. But the moment you stepped out of the shopping mall, you heard screaming behind you. Thief. Catch him. The entire street erupted in chaos. A figure suddenly rushed past you. You instinctively reached out and grabbed the thief's sleeve. But the thief violently pulled away. You turned around. Instead of a male thief, you saw a young girl standing by the roadside, crying. My phone and wallet are gone. But there was a gift from my boyfriend inside. It's the last thing he ever gave me. Why did it have to be stolen too? You suddenly saw the shadow of someone in her words. Without thinking, you ran after the thief. You chased him into a narrow alley filled with wooden crates. The thief turned around. He pulled a small knife from his sleeve. Hey, kid, you just came out of school, right? You're pretty fast. Give me the stuff. Otherwise, I'll call the police. You didn't understand why you had chased him, but you kept thinking about the moment you had disappeared from Lin Xiao's life. Wouldn't she have been just as heartbroken? What does it have to do with you? Get lost. The thief shoved you. You instinctively stepped backward. Then you reacted. You grabbed his hand and tried to take the bag away. The thief was shocked. Are you crazy? This has nothing to do with you. The two of you started wrestling. For a moment, neither side could overpower the other. The thief became furious. He instinctively pulled out his knife. You suddenly felt a sharp pain in your shoulder. The blade had sliced through your suit and cut into your upper arm. Blood immediately began flowing. The thief panicked. He didn't want things to become serious. Take the bag. Just take it. He threw the bag at you and ran away. You sat on the ground, exhausted. You looked at the girl's bag. Then you looked at your brand new suit. It was completely ruined. The sleeve had been cut open. Blood was dripping from your arm. You laughed bitterly. You took off the dirty suit jacket and wrapped it around your injured shoulder to cover the wound. Then you slowly walked out of the alley. The girl whose bag had been stolen eventually caught up with you. She kept thanking you and apologizing. You simply handed her the bag back without saying much. When you reached a traffic light, you suddenly felt completely lost. You had planned everything. You were supposed to meet Lin Xiao looking mature and successful. A stylish haircut, a beautiful suit, a confident appearance. But now everything was ruined. Just as you were standing there lost in thought, your footsteps suddenly stopped. Your eyes froze. Because at that exact moment, the person you had wanted to see more than anyone else in the world was walking across the street. Lin Xiao. Her appearance had changed. She looked nothing like the girl you remembered 10 years ago. But you recognized her instantly. Your mind went completely blank. You didn't care how messy your hair was. You didn't care how dirty or damaged your suit had become. You only cared about running toward her. You desperately tried to call out her name, but your throat suddenly felt as if it had stopped working. Not a single sound came out. You could only watch her walking away. Then, fortunately, she saw you. You opened your mouth again. Still nothing. But your face immediately broke into the biggest smile you had shown in years. You weren't wearing the suit you had prepared. You weren't looking like the mature man you had imagined becoming. You were simply standing there in a dirty undershirt, looking like the same foolish young man from 10 years ago. You had never imagined meeting her like this. Lin Xiao stopped. She stood across the street and looked at you. Her eyes slowly filled with tears. She couldn't tell whether what she was seeing was real. She wanted to run toward you. She wanted to see whether you were really the same person from her memories. But her reason told her that it was impossible. 10 years had passed. Even if that person had really returned, he couldn't possibly still look exactly the same. Maybe it was just a young man who happened to resemble him. Lin Xiao finally looked away. She wiped away her tears and took a step forward, as if she had decided never to look back again. She had made that decision a long time ago. She was going to completely leave her past behind. You stood across the street. You watched her disappear. You memorized that figure in your heart. After several seconds, you suddenly reached into your backpack. You pulled out the little rusty metal box. The same box you had once given her. The same box she had thrown away. The same box you had found again after all these years. You raised it high above your head. Then you shook it gently. Across the street, Lin Xiao unconsciously turned around. The moment she saw the metal box, her expression changed completely. She stopped walking. Her mouth slowly opened. A tiny sound escaped her lips. You raised the box even higher. Lin Xiao? She stared at you. Her entire body began trembling. She widened her eyes and looked across the street. It felt like something out of a dream. You were desperately waving the rusty box. Then Lin Xiao finally spoke. Don't cross the river. If you're really Gu Yiming, you don't know how to swim. The water is too deep. She shouted anxiously, but you suddenly became happier than you had ever been. You pointed at yourself with trembling hands. Lin Xiao. Are you calling me? Do you recognize me? It's me. I'm Gu Yiming. I came back to find you. Wait for me. Please don't leave. You immediately ran toward the bridge. You were terrified that Lin Xiao would disappear again. You ran as fast as you could. Your breathing became heavy, but when you finally reached the other side, you saw her standing only a short distance away. For a moment, your breathing became completely calm. The entire world seemed to grow quiet. Even the wind seemed to disappear. You looked at her. You instinctively brushed the hair away from the corner of your eye. Then you wiped your wet eyes, and you laughed foolishly. Lin Xiao stood in front of you. She looked at the boy she had once loved. Her eyes were still wet with tears. Even she hadn't realized that she was smiling. A faint smile appeared at the corners of her lips. You suddenly didn't know where to put your hands. You kept adjusting your pants and touching your hair nervously. You were simply too happy to know what to do. It had been 10 years. The girl standing in front of you was completely different from the girl you remembered. Yet somehow, she was still incredibly familiar. You looked at her from such a close distance for the first time. It felt both strange and familiar. Your heart was filled with nervousness and happiness. You had so many things you wanted to say, but the moment you stood in front of her, you suddenly didn't know where to begin. Where should I even start? Lin Xiao frowned slightly. She unconsciously rubbed her nose. Gu Yiming. It's me. You smiled honestly. Gu Yiming? Are you calling me? You took a small step forward, wanting to get closer. Gu Yiming. She softly repeated your name. Then she smiled through her tears and carefully looked at the young man standing in front of her. You've gotten thinner. She hesitated. There were so many questions she wanted to ask, but in the end, she didn't ask any of them. Time really passes quickly. You wanted to appear strong and confident in front of her. You straightened your chest slightly. Who am I helping? Lin Xiao tilted her head. Then she noticed the torn clothing hanging from your shoulder. The damaged fabric slipped down, revealing a large knife wound. The injury looked frightening. What happened to you? Who did you fight? How did you get hurt like this? Before you could answer, a warm hand suddenly grabbed your wrist. She pulled you forward. A faint, clean fragrance reached your nose. You could even feel the warmth of her body. Your heart immediately started beating faster. I was just helping a girl. A thief stole her bag. I helped her get it back. I got stabbed, but it's nothing serious. Your face suddenly became hot. Lin Xiao looked at you. Come with me. You looked surprised. Where? Your heart jumped when you realized she was holding your wrist. But Lin Xiao immediately released your hand. Her cheeks turned slightly red. Stop talking. Go to the hospital. At the hospital, the doctor quickly prescribed some medicine. Some were oral medicines. Most were ointments for external injuries. You watched Lin Xiao carefully collect the medicine. You noticed that she was secretly trying to hide how much pain she was in. She had been twisting her body from the pain earlier, but now she straightened her shoulders and pretended that nothing had happened. All right, don't act tough. These are the pills. Take them once in the morning and once at night. 2 pills each time. And these are for external use. You stared at her. Got it. By the way, how much is everything? 320 yuan. You awkwardly touched your pocket. You had already spent most of your cash on the haircut and suit. There was almost nothing left. I'll owe you. I'll pay you back later. Lin Xiao casually started walking toward the exit. It's already dark outside. Thanks. When I have money, I'll pay you back. I know. Nowadays, WeChat Pay makes everything easy. You can just transfer the money to me later. Why don't we add each other on WeChat? You immediately took the opportunity. Sure. I've only recently learned how to use it. It's fine. Just don't get into fights anymore. Lin Xiao kept walking. She didn't stop until they reached the hospital entrance. Then she turned around and took out her phone. Scan it. Really? Can I? Your eyes immediately lit up. You said you'd transfer the money to me later, right? Then how will I transfer it if we don't add each other? Lin Xiao looked at you. Her normally cold and emotionless expression paused for a moment. There was a faint tremble in her eyes. Maybe. Forget it. She was silent for a while. But you were busy playing with your phone and didn't notice the look in her eyes. No. You quickly raised your phone. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in New York, it was almost midnight. The city was separated from Nanchang by half the world. There was a 13-hour time difference. Inside a luxurious presidential suite near Times Square, the sound of laughter suddenly filled the room. But the laughter abruptly stopped. A middle-aged man wearing pajamas walked out of the bedroom, hurriedly fixing his messy hair. Mr. Gu, what's wrong? Did you suddenly feel uncomfortable? It's only 7 o'clock. Are you really leaving already? The middle-aged man's sleepy eyes suddenly lit up. A huge smile appeared on his face. What? My son came back? He used my card? He repeated the words excitedly. Then he immediately called his secretary. Book me the earliest flight to Nanchang. Right now. I want to go back and see my son. That night, even though they were separated by half the world, someone was finally coming home. At 8 o'clock that evening, Lin Xiao was driving you home. You had barely spoken during the entire journey. Finally, Lin Xiao spoke. Where are you staying now? You finally answered. I'm temporarily staying at a neighbor's uncle's house. My old home was demolished. I don't have a home anymore. Then you remembered the medicine. Remember to take your medicine on time. Some are oral medicines, and some are for external use. You looked at the luxury Porsche parked beside you. Lin Xiao had already gotten into the driver's seat. She started the engine. The quiet hum of the car filled the night. You smiled awkwardly. You didn't know what to say. Lin Xiao glanced at you while driving. Are you sure this is the right route? Are you sure? Sorry. I'm wrong. I was just using the old roads from memory. Navigation is much easier now. You deliberately pointed in the opposite direction. You simply wanted to spend a little more time with her. Lin Xiao quickly realized what you were doing. She pulled the car over. Then she turned her head and silently looked at you for a few seconds. You looked exactly like you had moments earlier.